I'm delighted to be here on a sunny September morning with Sarah Crowther QC, who has just been elected as Outer Temple Chambers Head of Chambers and Head of our Health Department. Sarah, many congratulations on your appointment as Head of Chambers. It's great. I think the first female Head of Chambers that Outer Temple has had. Obviously, far too late, but it's a good start. I'd like to take you back a little bit and ask you when you first decided you wanted to become a barrister and why.
Well, thank you first, Rebecca, for those congratulations and warm words. You know, I can't honestly remember when I decided that I wanted to be a barrister. I think I was always interested in logic and reasoning and justice and argument. And I read a lot of crime fiction and then courtroom dramas. And I watched too much Perry Mason and all those things. And it just seemed to me to be the obvious next step. And then I was doing work experience and going and visiting the Crown Court at Lancaster that used to be in the castle, and having kind of getting a little bit of a taste of the kind of, well, what I thought was going to be the glamour and things like that. And before I knew it, I was on track to become a barrister. So yes, I'm afraid I didn't have one of those wonderful stories of
Light bulb moment.
Inspirational moment.
What would you say to a young woman starting out now who's thinking about a career at the bar?
I think I'd say a lot of the same things that I'd say to anybody who was a young person wanting to have a career at the bar. I don't think there are any special rules that apply to women. I think you need to find who your friends are, find mentors, find either peers or people who've done part of the process already, who you can work with and you can get on with. Use them as a sounding board, get advice, learn what worked for them and what didn't work for them, and watch and listen and learn how they do the job and kind of steal bits of their style. You know, if you think, oh, well, that will work for me, I could try that. I guess for women, I suppose, then that might be easier to do if you've got a more senior woman who you can kind of perhaps style yourself on a little bit, but it doesn't need to be a woman. And a lot of senior men at the bar are great allies of junior women coming through. I mean, one of my pupil supervisors was James Dingemans, now Lord Justice Dingemans. And I think from him, I learned that you need to be prepared, you need to work hard, you need to be resilient. You need to be completely confident in your own case. It doesn't matter who you are or where you've come from. If you've got that knowledge, that you've done that work and you've got that belief, then, you know, all these questions about kind of sex and gender and social mobility and ethnic origins and things like that, they don't matter. And that is, I think, something that really does work at the bar. You know, if you stand up and you know your case, you will be judged on your advocacy and your case and your ability to present it. And I'm not saying it's easy, it's not, but I think I learned a lot from him, and he was a great role model for me. I mean, have a plan is another thing I would say, and be prepared to rewrite the plan if things don't go to plan. I think at the bar it's easy to drift because there is no career structure and there's no obvious way through. So you need to devise that for yourself and be pretty strict with yourself in checking in on it. And that might mean setting yourself some targets. So for me, I did say to myself, I want to take silk, and I want to take silk in 3 to 5 years. And then from that, I could work back to think, well, what am I going to need to do in order to achieve that? And it didn't all go to plan. I didn't manage to do everything that I wanted. But I was fortunate enough to get enough on the way that I was successful in my application. But it doesn't just happen.
Sarah, apart from your appointment as Head of Chambers, of course, what have been the highlights of your career so far?
Oh, well, undoubtedly, having the opportunity to make my first appearance in the Supreme Court, actually making oral submissions where my leader kindly gave me the opportunity to make submissions in reply in the so-called gay cake case, Ashes against Lee. And although it was only a 25-minute slot that I was going to have. Obviously, that meant no sleep for me overnight. And I stood up, and it was the third day of the hearing, and Lady Hale, who was presiding, immediately broke into an enormously broad smile, and she said, well, it's very nice to hear a woman's voice after listening to the men for 2 days, which was fantastic because it made the whole thing so much easier. She didn't need to do that. That was I thought, a great touch. But I guess for anybody at the bar, I guess Silk's Day is like a main memory that you never forget. It's a great kind of celebration. And a particular feature of my Silk's Day that I thought was lovely was the fact that Elliot Wolfe in Chambers was taking silk the same day. And of course, his father is Lord Wolfe. And he kindly offered to show all our little group who'd arrived at Westminster Hall a bit early around and give us a little tour, a private tour of the House of Lords. And I had my kind of small children with me, and they're kind of running around in the House of Lords, kind of finding biros down the backs of things and kind of touching all the pictures.
Touching all the things they shouldn't.
So I thought there's a prospect here that I'm never going to get to take silk because I get thrown out. But he was absolutely lovely, and I thought that was a really sweet thing for him to have done.
Sarah, I'd like to ask you, obviously having stepped into Head of Chambers leadership role at Outer Temple, what are your aspirations for Outer Temple Chambers?
We've got a message to get out, which is that we are leaders in everything that we do. We've got some of the very best people in terms of advocacy, intelligence, insight, skill, experience, specialism. I think Outer Temples has got a lot going for it. And I think for me, we need to build on that. I'd like it to be the kind of place where everybody feels they can be the best that they can be. And that they've got the ability to pursue whichever aspirations that they have in the way that they want to. And I want also for people to have that freedom to run their practices and not be overburdened with some of the things that can get in the way. But I also feel that we need to get a message out to the outside world that we are market leaders, because I think sometimes we sell ourselves a little bit short on that.
We're both sitting in our homes. We've just been working through 6 months of extraordinary times of lockdown. For you, what have been the highs and lows of lockdown life?
Well, without a doubt, being a working mother and homeschooling whilst going through some of the busiest periods of my practice ever all at the same time has been one of the hardest things that I've ever done in my entire life. And the kind of childcare edifice that you build in order to make everything work. The Jenga tower came toppling down all in one go. And it was an enormous shock to everybody's system. I think the adrenaline got us through the first few weeks, but then after that, it became very, very difficult for everybody. So that was really tough. But on the other hand, the flip side of that was that I saw a lot more of my family and children in a different way to what I usually do, because before, my working pattern had been to be away from home for 10 to 12 hours each day, so I wouldn't see a huge amount of the children during the week. It was good actually to have that contact with them on a day-to-day basis. Whether they would agree with that, you'd have to interview them, Rebecca.
Saving obviously the most important question for last, on a slightly different track. I think you may not watch or listen to Desert Island Disc, but I'm going to ask you, if you had to save one record from the waves, as they're asked on Desert Island Disc, what would your record be?
Oh. Can I be cheeky and change the question in a very lawyer way? Because
that's embarrassing, isn't it? Let's just move to something that you want to talk about.
Well, exactly. I would take a book because and it would be Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, which has for a very long time now been my favourite book, and I've read it more times than I can remember, and I would happily read it over and over. I'm not sure that I could say the same of any single record. I think if I was listening to the same music over and over again, I'm afraid that would probably send me slightly crazy. There was that court case about the guy whose neighbour played Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You, round and round and round, and he ended up suing them. And he got a psychiatrist to write a report saying that it constituted kind of torture of the human mind to listen to the chord sequence round and round and round. But I guess you don't have to listen to it all the time, do you?
No.
No. If I can cheat and have that would be good. I
think that's fair enough, and that's very spooky because it's also my favourite book, Sarah. So obviously, great minds think alike. Look, thanks so much for talking to me. I'm delighted you've been appointed, and I'm really looking forward to working with you. I think, working with the other heads and with all the members and all of the people at Outer Temple, I think all of the things that you said in terms of the aspirations are absolutely achievable, and I'm really looking forward to working with you.
Yeah, me too. Great. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks very much, Sarah. Have a good day.